Hello. So we basically had a lot of queries from our clients where they wanted to know how to safely use their foam rollers at home. Now you guys know that I think the foam roller is a really nifty piece of equipment. I absolutely love the foam roller. I love incorporating them into my workouts and at the end of my workouts because they are used as a form of self-myofascial release, and it basically becomes a very effective way to help rid the body of built-up tension, muscular tension. Now the foam rollers are made up of different compressible materials, and you get them in different densities as well. The softer the density, or the lower the density, the softer your roller will be. The higher the density of the compressible material, the harder the roller will be. Then you also get rollers like these. They are called grid rollers. They have a rigid surface, and these guys basically resemble knuckles. So manual therapy comes and is derived from massage, all right? So it's difficult to massage oneself, so we had to find different ways to help release tension in our own bodies. So the roller was designed. Now with your grid rollers, the little knobblies on top basically, as I said, resemble the knuckles, and they really get to dig into your trigger points, and they're not for everyone. Obviously it depends on the amount of muscle bulk that you have. If you're very skinny, these guys ain't gonna work for you. But I love this guy, almost sleeps in bed with me every night. So before we continue, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what fascia or fascial tissue basically is. So fascia is a form of connective tissue. It's basically made up of compressible collagen, and it basically connects us from head to toe. You find it in your hair, your nails, you find it in your skin, under your skin, in between and interwoven into every little part of our bodies. And it basically becomes a support or a protective system for the body, for the organs, for a specific muscle group or for a major group of muscles in the body. And they sit in between every little part of us. So if you think about an orange and you have to peel the orange away, you peel the skin away, that white little rind that you find on the inside, kind of imagine that as your fascial tissue. And it basically envelops every little part of our bodies. Now when your fascial tissue becomes very tight, it can actually cause restrictions in movement of the body, and that inevitably affects our movement patterns, and in turn will affect our postural habits and the way we move. So also when we talk about fascial tissue and we talk about the foam rollers, I often use the term a trigger point. If you feel a trigger point. Now a trigger point relates to those small little palpable nodules that you feel inside of the muscle. So the little bumps or the knots that we usually talk about, they build up in the muscle, and that's what we call a trigger point. Now your trigger points are usually very irritable spots of hard, as I said, palpable knots inside of the muscle or the tissue surrounding the muscle, and it's usually also associated with inflammation, pain and discomfort. And a trigger point in one part of the body, like for instance the upper trap, can actually cause referred pain into a different part of the body. It can cause headaches, it can cause neck related pain. If you think of the iliotibial band, too many trigger points or tightnesses, restrictions in the fascial tissue of your ITB can cause knee discomfort. The quads can also affect the knees. The hip flexors can affect the lower back. So that's why I absolutely love the fact that you can use the foam roller to get into those deep tissues where the nodules actually sit and to work and roll them out. And for today I'm going to show you a full body a full body flow that we can do, that you can actually really get into every single part of your body with your foam roller. I suggest we put this guy away because this ain't going to be fun. Alright, we're going to start with just our normal standard roller. These are the ones we use at the studio. They're relatively hard. They're also brand spanking new, that's why. You'll also find that your roller almost kind of becomes a little bit more pliable and softer as you start to use it throughout its lifespan. Alright, so we're going to start, I'm actually going to start with the feet. I don't often like to use the rollers with the feet. For that, I usually make use of a dumbbell. If I don't use a dumbbell, a tennis ball, but let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to start with the feet. The feet actually can become quite troublesome if you don't roll them out, especially if you're a runner or a cyclist. The feet often become quite tight underneath. You end up with things like plantar fasciitis, which is the inflammation of the fascial tissue that sits underneath the foot. Alright, so I like to just start by stretching out the foot. So what I'm going to do is just use a ball. It's a nice hard ball, and I'm going to just place my heel down on the floor with the ball of my foot over the ball. You're going to stretch your toes over the ball as if you're gripping like a little bird sitting on a stick, and we just stretch out the muscular tissue over the ball there. And then you can also just step it forward slightly. You're going to feel that you get into that calf at the bottom while we're pressing down and feeling that trigger point or that pressure point onto the sole of the foot. Alright, so you get a really, really nice stretch into the back of the calf there as well. Alright, from there, I'm going to step back and I'm going to apply most of my weight onto the ball. I'm going to press down and then I'm going to slowly start rolling through the fascial tissue of the foot. Alright, you might feel that this is not always the most comfortable feeling underneath the feet. And again, I like to work slow because you can work a little bit deeper into the tissue there as well. And I can actually see when I'm working on the trigger point, the toes start to almost just pull on by themselves, okay, involuntarily. Alright, you want to roll the inside of the sole of the foot. You really want to cover that whole bottom section of the foot there. So the sole of the foot, the inside, the outside, and then over the heel. Alright. Just give it a nice good roll, and you'll do both parts of the feet as well. And where you feel that there's a little bit of a niggle, I want you to just apply weight down onto it, ease into it. You almost want to get that sense of melting over the ball, melting over the roller as we continue to work, just to get into that trigger point, and you'll experience eventually a sense of release. Now when I talk about release, it's almost like a popcorn shooting, and you get that immediate sense of relief into the muscle and into that trigger point. So you're going to give it a nice good roll. My feet are nice and stiff. I can feel them. Right, and that is the feet. Alright, so I've decided to start on the front of the body. When we roll from the distal part of the muscle and up. So I'm actually going to start, we've done the feet now, I'm going to start with the shins. Alright, so what I like to do is, there's two ways that I like to do this. Alright, you can either just step into 4-point kneeling onto your foam roller here, and I'm not resting on the bone because I don't want to cause any bruising. I'm almost kind of rolled out a little bit on my shin so that I can cover that muscle that runs along the shin. Alright, so I'm going to walk forward just so I start there at the bottom, and then I roll all the way up. So you still have to work quite a lot of shoulder stabilization, abdominal control. So at the end of the foam rolling session, you would actually get a really good workout. Alright, so you're going to roll out the shin. I also like to just turn to the side and give a nice deep roll into the muscles there. Alright, and I can feel there through the middle part of the muscle, they're quite stiff and sore. Alright, that's the shins. It's as easy as that. And obviously you'll turn around, do the other side of the body as well. And where again you feel a little point of a niggle or a trigger point as we call it, you can roll over it slightly horizontally. You can see that I'm just adding a gentle sway over the movement there. And then you can also just do little rolls going over until you feel that that part of the body releases. Alright, I'm going to move up. We're going to go into the quads. Right. Alright, we're going to move on to the quads here. So I'm just going to prop myself up onto elbows there. Feet are just nice and relaxed. And I'm not resting on the actual patella or the kneecap. I'm basically just above it. Also, I don't want to be hanging into my back because that's going to cause serious tension through the lumbar spine. You want to almost create a soft posterior tilt so that the tummy muscles can lift up and away from the floor. All right, from here, I'm just going to slowly roll back over the belly of the muscle. My legs are in parallel, and I'm just pushing my body back and forward. All right, again, shoulders are working hard. The slower you move, the deeper the feel into the muscles. Now, if you're very bulky in the musculature of the body here, you're going to maybe work better on a grid roller to really get into those trigger points. All right, we know that the quad basically covers the whole of the front of the thigh, so we want to get into all 4 of those muscles. All right, I've done my parallel position through my legs. I'm going to go to external rotation. So I get into my VMO a little bit more. VMO is that beautiful bulky muscle that just sits over the top of the knee or above the top of the knee. Here we go. I can feel this guy is quite tight, especially on my left. And again, where I feel my trigger point, I'm going to hold it. Do small little rolls forward and backward, and you can literally feel your body heating up as the blood just flows back into that muscle. So with that, lymphatic flow is also improved and increased into the muscles. Nutrients and oxygen is being brought up to the surface tissues and the muscle there as well. I'm going to go into that external rotation of my femur. So I'm going to get a little bit more into the outside part of my quads, and you can see there that my toes are touching. So I'm almost in what we call a pigeon stance there. That's it, and this I can feel. The ear tibial band starting to cover the outside there, so I can feel it going into that as well. And we're just going to keep rolling the quads. Again, you can be a little bit more dynamic and roll front to back in internal, external rotation there as well. Really digging into those muscles. It's not the most comfortable feeling, but that was your quads. From the quads, we're going to move in to the TFL and the iliotibial. We're going to work into the iliotibial band and the TFL. Now, the TFL is a small muscle that sits just above the ITB. And the iliotibial band basically flows out of your TFL muscle. The TFL muscle is a hip flexor, it's also a hip abductor, and often takes over from the glutes, all right, when you have weaker glutes. So we're going to roll out that part of the hip, and for that, I actually like to put my roller, I'm just going to do that there to the side, to put my roller out to the side so that I'm just using the smaller portion of the end of my roller to get into the TFL. All right, so I'm going to lie with that. So if you're up here, you can feel the TFL on the side there. So I'm just slightly rotated there, and my other leg I'm just opening up and placing to the side of me. And then you're going to roll out on the side there. It's a nice gentle roll. Again, if this guy is tight and sensitive, you're going to really feel it. Okay, and it's also a nice small muscle, so you don't have to give long strides. Woo, there I can feel it. So you just hold it in that position and we roll it out nicely. Okay, small little rolls. Again, you can also create small movements wherever you feel, and I'm just going to get higher into that, rolling it out. So I can actually feel it's quite neural going into my feet there. Give it some nice big rolls. I'm going to go into the hip flexor just from here now. I'm going to turn my body a little bit more parallel, and I'm going to roll over the hip joint and up. All right, so here we're going to basically work into the lower fibers of your iliopsoas and your hip flexor muscles as well. All right, if you're very bony, don't roll over the bones because you might bruise yourself there. Hip flexors aren't too bad. There we go. All right. From your TFL, we're going to go into the ITB or the iliotibial band. I'm going to just turn over to the other side for you guys so you can see. All right, you're going to lie on your hip just above the knee for me again. And you're already going to feel it's quite sensitive. I bring my one foot a little bit more to the front of me so that I can get that bottom leg lifted. I'm propped up on my shoulder and bottom oblique is still nice and active. Alright, you can support with your top arm here, and you're going to roll out into that iliotibial band there for me. Alright, we don't roll onto the greater trochanter. The greater trochanter is the hip bone on the side of your hip. You don't want to be bruising anything there. And again, you're going to just internally or externally rotate that leg to the point where you feel trigger points. Now, with the iliotibial band, there's a huge misperception that you need to foam roll it all the time. Right, it is a fascial form, it is a form of fascial tissue, it's not a muscle, right? And basically what happens is that it naturally has little nodules and trigger points in it. And over rolling it is obviously not going to be good. It's rather than best to roll and work around the muscles around the ITB, like the hamstrings and the quads, the TFL, the inner thighs. Right, once all those muscles are released, you're actually going to feel quite a nice release into the ITB as well. Alright, so never overroll your muscles either. There we go. That is the iliotibial, the lower half, lower half of my body. I'm now going to go into the bottom half of my body. So for this, it's usually a little bit more difficult because you need a little bit more strength, but you can always prop yourself up on something behind you. With the calves, again, I like to do that internal-external rotation on the calves, but often I feel that it's not enough pressure because it's obviously lighter than the top of the thighs. So for me, I feel if I cross my legs over, I get more pressure into the roller, and it makes such a huge difference to get into those trigger points, especially where where you get that little hollow, or not the hollow, the triangle where the muscle, the gastrocnemius muscle comes together. That is a beautiful place for the trigger points to sit, and especially in our runners. So let's get into the calves. Right, I'm going to start just by my Achilles tendon here. I'm going to prop myself up. I'm going to start at the top of my calf here. I'm going to prop myself up and I'm going to roll back. And again, you can go into that internal, external rotation. As I said, this doesn't do much for my body because I'm not heavy enough at the bottom to get that pressure and weight down. So for me, this is going to be an extra lever on top of what I already have, and I can get into a single side rather than just work bilaterally. You can see there that I've now, or unilaterally, excuse me. You can see there that I've now gone into that internal rotation, working through more to the inside of the calf there, which is quite tight, going into parallel. And I'm still reaching out of my shoulders. I'm still getting a workout through my triceps there. Woo! And then working into the outside of the calf muscle there. Right. And again, where you feel that trigger point, hold it, press down a little bit heavier. That's it. And then you're going to do gentle little rolls going over. This is quite sensitive there. Right. With the runners especially, like your trail runners as well, we use the calves a lot when we run on tippy toes so we can save our energy in our larger muscles. So our calves end up becoming quite tight. So you really, really want to dig into those calves there as well. Right. In and release. Right. From the calves, we're going to bring the roller up to the hamstrings. Again, with the hamstrings, we're going to do them the same as the front. Internal, external rotation and in parallel. If you're not getting enough there because it's a deeper, bulkier muscle, you can use a grid roller. If the grid roller is not working, again, you're just going to cross the legs over one on top of the other. All right, I'm going to go straight into that. So I go into my little bit more of a pressure there and into my hamstring. And you roll the hamstring to right where your glutes start. It's usually there where it is quite tight. I call it your thas. It's where your thigh meets your ass. That's it. You're going to roll there. Again, you can go into slight external rotation, cover a little bit of the inner thigh and some part of the hammies there on the inside. Or both legs. And again, you get that sense of melting over your roller there as well. All right. Keep it on the trigger point. Ease into it. breathe through your stretches, and then release. And that concludes the lower half of the body. We're going to now move to the upper parts of the body. From there, we've basically now done the feet, the shins, the calves, the quads, and the hamstrings. We're going to move higher up into the glute medius and the piriformis muscles. I have two ways that I like to release these guys. I'm going to show you the figure 4 way, and then I'm going to show you the vertical release on them as well. Alright, so I like to just bend my knee into what we call a figure 4 position. I dorsiflex my foot because that already initiates length through the nervy tissues as well into my foot. Alright, I'm going to put my opposite hand on my shin, and I'm going to put the same side that's bent in figure 4 behind me. Then I'm going to roll, because I basically now stretched open this glute. I'm going to roll onto that open hip, holding onto my shin there, and you're going to start rolling. Now the piriformis muscle is one of those muscles that you're going to either hate or love to roll out. For me it's a delicious, delicious, delicious feeling. Not always the nicest, depending on what you've done throughout the day, but you're going to give it a good roll. Now the glute med and the piriformis muscles can cause severe issues in the body, lower back pain, nervy issues, things like your piriformis syndrome, and it's great for your clients that suffer with things like sciatica and piriformis syndrome to just get release of that tension. Obviously, we won't do it while you have that inflamed piriformis muscle or sciatica at that stage. All right, so you're going to give it a good roll, and again, you can also roll just from side to side there. Where you find your trigger point, I want you to hold it. It's usually a very numb, very dull feeling or sensation, and then you continue with your small rolls, big rolls, going up and down. All right. That is your piriformis and glute med. The other way of stretching the sit bones and stretching the glute muscles, I like to just have my foam roller there, and I basically sit my sit bones on either edge, on either sides basically of my foam roller. And then I'm going to just lengthen through my spine and then add little rolls there. So it gets into those small little bones, your sit bones, it gets into the muscles that start to go inside or forms inside into the pelvic basin there that often become quite tight. All right, so this creates a nice little release there as well, and I've also found that it releases my sacroiliac issues too. Right, this is quite a sharp feeling that you might feel if you do this. Here we go. And then the next one is to just roll back gently, and you can roll the roller vertically over the muscle, the bulk of your muscle there as well. Obviously this is not as intense as your figure 4 stretch, but it also still gets into that glute muscle. And I kind of feel that the more you roll in all the directions of the muscle fibers, the more release you're going to experience anyway. All right. So you should feel a nice burny sensation into the pelvic areas there. Good, that is your glutes for foam rolling. We're going to move up now into, alright, moving into the lumbar spine, the QL muscles that sit just along the spine there, they're your lumbar extensors, rotators and lateral flexors. They basically can become quite tight and irritable due to sitting for extended times, and also if you're a lordotic posture with an anterior tilt, they often become quite tight and shortened. So it's very good to get them that stretch and to just work into those muscle fibers to loosen them up so that they don't get stuck in a locked position, because a muscle is supposed to be able to contract and return back to its natural state. All right, it needs that elasticity that we are looking for. So for the lumbar spine, I always hold on to my thighs at the back, C-curving through my pelvis, so that I automatically already get that length through my lumbar spine, and then I'm going to roll my body forward. Good. And I'm just going to bend and extend my knees. You can have the hands in front of you. Keep your forward flexion. If your neck feels like it's kicking in, you can just add the hands behind the head. This is definitely a nice deep activation of the abs as well. So it just shows you that beautiful connection of support from the front to the back. And you're going to roll just to where the rib cage starts. So about to T12 of the spine, of the thoracic vertebra. That's where the thoracolumbar junction starts. Lower back meets the upper back. All right, you're going to roll out there, and again, we're going to roll to the side. I'm going to release the muscles over the rib cage. So from there, just underneath that last rib of the body, this is not a lack of feeling, okay? But underneath the last rib, you're going to drop your body down, already going to feel that weight and that pressure onto the rib cage. And you're going to just add this beautiful rotation of the thoracic spine there. It releases the trigger points of the diaphragm. It releases the lower fibers of the serratus muscles. Also where the muscles of the abs start to attach. Get a nice little release over there. You should feel that it's quite again, that dull sensation or pain, but it is a lovely, lovely release for lumbar spine tightnesses as well. If the front line is functional, the back line should be beautifully released and functional as well. All right, just a nice little release there. Again, roll over, do the other side, and then we're going to flow it into your thoracic spine. So for my thoracic spine, I'm going to start with my tail down. I'm going to first add my stretches, and then I'm going to release through the upper back. So I'm going to have hands behind the head here to support. Tail stays down, and the tips of my shoulder blades are just on my roller. I try and keep my pelvis as neutral as I possibly can, and then from there I glide my ribs into my front pockets, getting that deep musculature of the front engaging, and then I'm just going to stretch over without my ribs popping, creating this beautiful arc over my roller. And already I can feel some trigger points at the back into my lower traps and my spinal extensors, going again over into that extension, stretching the thoracic spine. So for the guys that suffer with kyphosis, I do, with a slightly rounded upper back, this is a beautiful stretch to get that length into the muscles of the upper back. And then draw it back in. Make sure the shoulders stay nice and relaxed. On the last one, you're going to bring the body just to a parallel position. You're going to roll the pelvis up off of the floor, holding the glutes active in that posterior tilt. You're going to bend the knees. The arms have to open as wide as you can so that you can get into all the muscles underneath the scaps or over the scaps that form and over the scapular muscles there. All right, so the wider open the arms, the deeper the work will be. And again here you can also rotate to the one side so you cover some parts of the teres muscles, the lats, the infraspinatus. You get a lovely rollout on that side as well. Back through center, again, rest where you feel that you need to put more pressure onto that trigger point. Ease into it, breathe into it, melt over your roller there. Good. All right, that is your thoracic spine. From there, I'm going to roll my pelvis down and bring the roller to underneath the head. All right, so the base of my skull is basically resting on top of my foam roller. Now your head weighs about 5 kgs max, okay, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, give or take. All right, but we're going to work on that base of the skull. Hands down to the side, and you're going to feel, you're definitely going to feel if you have the right spot there. So we're going to look to the left and look over to the right. So you feel you just need to slightly adjust the position of your roller. Press your head actively into that foam roller. You're going to feel where the upper traps attach into the neck, so the neck extensor muscles as well, where they attach. You're going to feel a lovely release here. This part, holistic therapies, is also seen as your glute and hamstring complex. So if you do suffer with tight hammies and glutes, you might also feel it here. It might resemble the same feelings that you feel in the same tightnesses that you feel into your glutes and your hamstrings. All right, so just nodding from side to side. Again, this is a lovely, lovely stretch of the neck and the head there. Rolling over. If you tuck your chin a little bit more, you're stretching the muscles, and you can get into those little nodules a little bit deeper there. Keep your roller nice and close. You're going to reach up and over, nod yes or no. Small movements there. And release. Good. The last part that we're going to do, I'm going to let you release your forearms as well for wrist help. Right. So from here, you're going to turn palms up and you're going to roll. So I'm putting most of my weight onto my forearms there, and you can actually just roll onto the side there, working into those muscles just so you can see. I'm giving nice external rotation of my forearms there, rolling them out. Also, you can go from there, just give them a good roll there. So if you're a computer worker, you will definitely feel them. So these are all the different ways you can work into the muscles of that forearm. Going into that internal, external rotation. And that concludes a full body rollout with more. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have any further questions, please send it to me or comment on the video, and then we take it from there. Love you guys.